Hey everyone, Mr. DVB here. So tonight I saw Quentin Tarantino's 9th, technically 10th, and newest film, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Today I'm going to be reviewing the film for you all. First of all, I want to apologize for the setup. We just moved into our new house. This is our second night here, and I don't exactly have a setup area yet for filming my videos, so I'm kind of just in the basement right now, so there's all these lights and everything in the way, so sorry about that. Second of all, I think I have a cold right now, so if my voice is raspy or like cracky or whatever throughout this video, I apologize for that. Without further ado, let's jump into this review. So, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood was one of my most anticipated movies, not only of this summer, but of this entire year. Quentin Tarantino is one of the best directors out there, not just currently, but of all time. He has made some of the best films over the past 27 years. All of his movies have extremely well-crafted dialogue with fantastic, memorable characters, really great stories, and they're just always pieced together perfectly. They always have a great pace. They're always, in this really cool order. He has a particular fashion, and obviously he is over the top when it comes to violence. So I was really excited to see, how he would handle this story set in the 1960s about this actor and his stunt double who are kind of going through this phase of their life where they're not getting as much work as they used to. They're kind of considered failures at this point. So they're in Hollywood trying to get, back into their glory days, and this film is somehow tied into the Charles Manson murders, which occurred back in the late 60s with Sharon Tate, who in this movie is played by Margot Robbie. So the actor and the stuntman in this movie are played by none other than Leonardo DiCaprio and Brad Pitt. These two actors have starred in previous Quentin Tarantino movies. We've seen Leonardo DiCaprio as Calvin Candy in the fantastic 2012 live-action film Django Unchained. I mean, I don't even know why I said live-action, because all of his films are live-action. But I absolutely loved him in that movie, and I thought he was fantastic in this film. One of the best things about this movie, right off the bat, is the cast. Everybody in this movie does a fantastic job. There were some huge actors in this movie, like Al Pacino and Kurt Russell, who weren't really used that much in this movie, which was a little bit of a disappointment, but they still all gave great performances. But the highlight here, the spotlight is definitely given to Leonardo DiCaprio as Rick Dalton, who is this, like I said, failed, kind of down on his luck TV show actor, and his buddy, Cliff Booth, who is his stunt double, played by Brad Pitt, who just gave an excellent performance in this movie. I think this is one of his best performances in a while, honestly. I thought his character was hilarious. Both of them were very funny, and they had great chemistry together. All of their scenes were fantastic in this movie, and I really liked seeing how they would, play off of each other in this film. I also thought that Margot Robbie was really good as Sharon Tate. She was in the movie quite a bit, and she didn't have a ton of dialogue, especially when compared to the other main characters in this movie, but I still thought that she was really good in this film. She definitely, portrayed this character in a very kind of exciting way, and I just liked seeing her performance in this movie. And yeah, overall, I really liked the tone of this movie. I liked the whole look of the film, obviously, because this is set in the 60s. It's shot in a way like 60s movies. It has that kind of film look to it, with even the colors and everything remind me a lot of 60s movies. So they definitely did a really good job of making us feel like it was set in the 60s. Everything from the sets to the costumes, everything here, it really fit that era perfectly. The movie has a really kick-ass soundtrack. There's some really great songs in here from the 60s, so everything fit very perfectly. Sadly, this is not a perfect movie. As a matter of fact, it might actually be one of my least favorite Quentin Tarantino movies, because the biggest problem with this movie is that it's just extremely slow, and there's not really that much of a story to this movie. Now, there's a lot of Tarantino films out there that actually really don't have that much of a story. Pulp Fiction, for matter, considered to be his best film by many people, doesn't have that much of a story. It's basically a bunch of different events which are told from different points of view, and you're kind of getting different characters' perspectives on these things. It's not necessarily a film that has one big story that's kind of connecting everything together. It's, like I said, a lot of different characters and just their own side stories, but that movie worked so well because the dialogue was fantastic, and all those characters just worked so well together. The characters here, like I said, work really well together, but this is definitely not, as well written as, honestly, the majority of his previous films. Even Hateful Eight, which I, by the way, think is a fantastic, underrated film, had tons of memorable dialogue. This movie really didn't have that many memorable lines for me. A lot of the memorable lines that there were just in the trailers, and like I said, there's not even that much memorable dialogue here. I found that this movie wasn't as funny as Tarantino's previous films. There were definitely a few huge laughs. The last 15 minutes of this movie were fantastic. It was everything that I wanted from this movie in that last, 15 minutes of the film. But everything leading up to that point was kind of just a slow drag, and I did enjoy seeing these characters on their own separate things. Seeing Rick Dalton as this failed actor try to make a movie or a TV show. It was really enjoyable seeing Leonardo DiCaprio's performance in this movie. I thought that he was fantastic as Rick Dalton, and he personally stole the show for me. But I just felt like there was really no story that made me honestly kind of interested in what was going on. I enjoyed the performances, but besides that, there was no story holding these things together. And like I said, if this film was extremely well written and there was tons of fantastic, hilarious, memorable dialogue, it would have been better because I would have been able to get past the fact that there wasn't much of a story. Like I said before, many of Tarantino's films don't have that much of a story. They're just about characters in these settings, and it's his dialogue that always works so well, but I just found the dialogue in this film to be really weak in comparison to a lot of his previous work. This movie was also sort of marketed as being this film about the Manson family and the whole cult, which obviously led to Sharon Tate's death. This movie really didn't focus on that aspect much. I'm not even kidding. There is only one scene with Charles Manson in it, and it is the exact scene you saw in the trailer. It's him waving. I think he has like one line, and that is literally all we see of his character in this movie. I was really disappointed by that because I thought that could have been a really great and interesting, character for this movie. But yeah, they just only had him in there for one scene. That was kind of a surprise to me. So I would kind of wish that whole Manson aspect of this movie was in there a little bit more, because there were some pretty, interesting and almost thriller-like, very suspenseful scenes with the cult, but they just never really went anywhere. It would be getting interesting, and they would just do something else with it, and I wasn't a huge fan of that. But again, I still enjoyed my time with this movie, even though I did find it to be kind of slow for the majority of the film. Like I said, the first 2.5 hours, which is literally the majority of the movie, was kind of slower pace and didn't have much going on. It was really the last 15 minutes that just packed everything you wanted to see into it. And even though those last 15 minutes were fantastic, I just felt like this film didn't really have a huge payoff for me. I would have expected even more from Tarantino. It is a brutal final 15 minutes, but it's like, by Tarantino standards, this is easily his most tame movie, I would say. Maybe something like Jackie Brown is more tame, but still, like this movie, it was violent, but all of his other films besides maybe Jackie Brown or something like that were quite a bit more violent and gruesome and everything. So, I don't know. Overall, I was disappointed by this movie, to be completely honest, just because of how all of his previous work went. Now, if you're just watching this film without really being a Tarantino fan or somebody who thinks all of his other work is fantastic and it has to live up to that, then you're probably going to enjoy this movie, because this is a very well-directed film. It's very well shot. It looks fantastic. The acting from everyone across the board is stellar here. It's just that by Tarantino standards, I expected more. I expected this to have better dialogue. I expected this to have more of a, better pacing, more of a story. And it just didn't really deliver on those aspects for me. So I am a little bit disappointed with this movie. I still think you guys should go see it if you do like Tarantino movies and if you just want to see a really well-made film overall. I'm going to give Once Upon a Time in Hollywood a 7.5 out of 10. This is still a enjoyable movie with incredible performances, Oscar-worthy performances if you ask me, from people like Leonardo DiCaprio, who was hilarious in this movie. There's a lot of funny scenes with him on set when he's making these films, and I really liked that aspect of this movie, by the way, when they're making these films and you're kind of seeing all these like old 60 TV shows and all these old 60s movies that these characters were in that are fake. It was kind of funny. Those moments were cool. I just wanted more of that stuff rather than just what we got. So there you go, guys. Those are my thoughts on Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I will upload a ranking of all of Tarantino's films later, probably tomorrow. I actually have never seen Death Proof, so I kind of have to watch that before I do my ranking. But until then, thank you all for watching this video, and I will see you guys all next time. Bye.